A lot of people today are not just asking, is Christianity true? They're asking, is it good? Because they're being told that Christianity is wicked, it's intolerant, it's oppressive. And so we need to be able to show Christianity is good for the world, not just to get you to heaven. You want me to believe in the man. Yeah, but the man is in the book. Yeah, I don't believe in the book. So apologetics is, it's time for it to be revived. As goes the campus, so goes the culture. And as goes the U.S. campus, so goes the world.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Huddle. As always, just super grateful to be sponsored by Sports World. And as always, I'm very grateful for Brian joining us today. Brian, how you doing, buddy?
I am doing so fantastic on this great day.
Nathan, what's going on in your world? Everything good, buddy?
I'm doing great. Everything's good. Yeah,
Man, to say I'm excited about this guest is an understatement. We have Dr. Corey Miller. He's the head of Ratio Christi, which is an apologetics group that does work all over the world, actually, in college ministries. Just real quick about him, he holds his master's degrees in philosophy, biblical studies, and philosophy of religion and ethics, and received his PhD in philosophical theology from the University of Aberdeen in Scotland. Is that right?
Right. Braveheart. Freedom.
Yeah.
we like everything about it. Now you're talking to our audience, and they truly appreciate that. Man, we're just so excited to. So for those who don't know, just tell us a little bit about the ministry that you had and the work that you guys do.
Yeah, so my background is I came out of seventh generation Mormonism, and my ancestor was a bodyguard of Joseph Smith. So that ended up getting me interested in this whole space of philosophy, comparative religions, and apologetics, because I had to now know that something was true. And eventually went into pastoral ministry and then PhD and professoring, and then finally landed this opportunity with a very, very strategic ministry that focuses intently on apologetics evangelism at the undergrad and high school level, but then on integration of faith and reason and vocation and infiltration, storming the beaches of Normandy at the level of the PhD student and professor. So we're located on the college campuses. The realtor says location, location, location.
That's right.
And I think that's what makes us one of the most strategic ministries in the country, because as goes the campus, so goes the culture, and as goes the U.S. campus, so goes the world.
Man, that's what we're going to talk about today. First of all, love to talk about LDS. We actually have had an episode on from Mormons, and probably one of our most attended and with the most comments, Nathan, probably on our episode from the LDS.
Between that and baptism, then
those
are definitely
the two things that people
the most
got.
comments. Yeah, I'm just excited because Jeff usually says, "Y'all know I'm the smartest person up here," so I'm excited for that. You couldn't say that today, right?
I've never been able to say that any day. I've never been able to say that in my own house. There's no place that I've ever been. First of all, we will talk about your book, The Progressive Miseducation of America, and I love the subtitle: Confronting the Cultural Revolution from the Classroom to Your Community. You contend in this book that this cultural crisis that we've had, it has its beginnings in our educational system, and particularly in the collegiate level.
Right.
That we've had, and it's not accidental that we have. There's been certain things that have been taught in the educational system that we're seeing the results of right now.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's just common sense. Downstream in our society is politics. Upstream from that is culture. Upstream yet still is education, and the apex of that is the university. And it's so influential that 1 out of 3 world leaders earned an academic degree from a U.S. university. So literally, this is ground zero in leveraging the rest of the world. They're coming here. World Missions is here. It's at our universities. And given the radical, disparate disconnect between the worldview of the professors and the common person in our culture, it's no wonder we're radicalizing so quickly and radically in a cultural revolution. The number of liberal to conservative professors right now is 12 to 1 for those who are retirement age, but for those who are just getting their tenure and have another 30 or 40 years ahead of them, sort of like a Supreme Court justice, you get tenure, you're untouchable. It's 23 to 1.
Wow.
And in the Ivy Leagues, for the parents who say, my kid goes to an Ivy League school, look at my bumper sticker, I'm so proud. Right?
Or
it's
license plate.
27 to 1. So the parents and the pastors, but parents and grandparents are literally paying for the apostasy of their own children if they send them into these secular baptismal fonts without being equipped.
You're happy because he made fun of me, aren't
I
you?
was 100% happy.
Because I attended one of those places.
You had said revolution. Didn't you initially intend to title the book "The Third Revolution"?
That's right.
And so help explain.
The
a little
publisher stole it from me.
Those jerks.
It was called The Third Revolution: From the Campus to the Culture and a Vision Forward. They wanted it to be the Miseducation of America. We quickly realized Pete Hegseth actually has a documentary titled that.
Oh.
And so we put the Progressive Miseducation of America. But
Gotcha.
it is about the third revolution that I'm calling for, based on the first two ideological revolutions that have entered into the university and taken over our universities that we Christians founded.
Right. What were the first two? I'm dumb. He's not, but
Okay.
just briefly, of course. What were the first two, and then how did that lead into the third one?
Yeah, first two were scientific naturalism, coming from Germany largely. We had no PhD programs, and so we sent our best and brightest people over to Europe. And Europe, at the time, had the focal point of the most educated, formally educated people in the history of the world were the Germans. And so that's where you had Freud and Nietzsche and Marx and Engels and Kant and all these people. Our people graduated. They came back to Harvard, Princeton, and Yale, and the battle was on from 1880 to 1930. They won, and the dust was beginning to settle. We had owned these places for 250 years. I mean, Harvard's motto, a lot of people don't realize this, from 1636, a decade and a half after the Puritans landed, they started Harvard, and the motto, almost for 300 years, was truth for Christ and the church.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And almost every single president of just about every college campus was a member of the clergy. And this lasted up until about 1880, until this battle happened over 50 years. We lost. We had to then go start round two at Westminster and Calvin College and Wheaton and Biola, all of which are now starting to feel cracks in their fissures.
That's
because round two is about to take place and is, in fact, we are in the revolution right now. But in 1930, when the dust was settling, there was this little group over in Germany called Frankfurt, the Frankfurt School of Critical Theory. We now hear critical race theory, critical gender theory, critical pedagogy, critical anything. If it's not critical thinking, run, because it's Marxism plus.
So let's define a little bit more, because I think critical theory is an important part in your book, and I think it's an important part of what's really taken place these last number of years. This neo-Marxist idea of critical theory, which we want our audience to understand this, that it's kind of seen through the lens of power structures and power dynamics, right? That there's going to be, it's certainly a part of it, that everything has to be seen through this lens. It's no longer seen through a competence hierarchy. It's not whether you're good or not, that it's strong and weak, and you're either the oppressor or the oppressed. There's only two groups in this theory, right?
That's right. No, that's absolutely right. And this week I was meeting with world Christian leaders in Dallas, and I was meeting with pastors at a summit, and I'm seeing that stuff on display in people that I'm interacting with, thinking, oh my gosh, it's still here. And I know it's still here because I breathed this stuff. This is,
right.
The stuff that I studied about when I was in seminary. I thought, okay, that's an interesting thing, this liberation theology down in Central and South America. It'll probably really never make a significant splash in America. Well, once I transitioned from biblical studies to philosophy so that I could get into the secular university, like the Trojan horse entering the city of Troy, right? They took a decade to try to breach those walls, but they never could. So they figured out a stealth plan, and that was for me, get a PhD from a secular university, cover over my Christian past, and enter in by stealth, defend our own, advance the cause of Christ. Well, 6 weeks into it, I'm getting prank calls at 3 o'clock in the morning mocking me for my faith.
Wow.
By people who now, I've had Texas congressmen call me to get a character assessment on some of these colleagues of mine who have now been tenured down here in Texas, who have doxed police chiefs' wives and garnered the attorney general to start investigating them.
We don't believe it. We think academia is open to new ideas and new notions, and they think that they received you openly.
Yeah, and I took graduate level Marxism, and I saw this is what's coming down the pike. This was back in 2005. And then by 2009, I was fifth year in my PhD, all but dissertation, and I had it sabotaged, told I had too much of a faith perspective.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I had to go on for a PhD at a second time because of this nonsense that's happening in the universities that we started. And so, yeah, I think most people, to describe what this power and privilege, this social theory is about, most people would latch on to DEI. I don't call it DEI. I call it DIE, not just for cute rhetorical reasons, though
Right.
it is that, but because as a trained philosopher, I think of everything in terms of the three branches of philosophy, which are metaphysics, epistemology, and ethics. But to speak in layman's terms, what is real? How do I know what is real? How should I then live based on what I know about reality? That's what we all do. We're all philosophers at the end of the day, and we all have views of reality, knowledge, and the good life. Well, DIE happens to fit in that order. Diversity for these academics who are pushing the ideas means the diversification of oppressor-oppressed groups, have or have-nots, victims or victimizers. Everybody is part of this. You can't not be part of it. It is all part of a power structure. And this is divided up in race, class, sex, gender, ethnicity. So D is about locating all the social binary opposition groups. Then when it comes to I, inclusivity, you think it means let's include everybody. No. It means let's include only those who are part of the oppressed class.
That's right.
And let's exclude the oppressor classes like white males, Christians, heterosexuals, cisgender, capitalist, you name it. Let's include only those in the minoritized, oppressed classes and exalt them in places of employment like United Airlines or like the security for the president or medical school, heart surgeons or whatever. Let's just start bringing in women and minorities and anyone that we see as a minoritized class, and we'll promote them, we'll exalt them, and we will give them the voice. It's a morally authoritative voice.
That's right.
Because only they can truly see, only their eyes have been opened, only they have awakened, they are woke. That's what woke means.
Yeah.
And so the rest of us need to just sit down, shut up, and lament and learn from them if we can. But they are the ones who now get platformed. And then the E is crucial. We like the term equality. It used to be going on that, and then it became equity. That used to be a finance term, but now it's a moral term. And what that means is revenge, reparations, payback. And one of the Democratic presidential governor, well, he was a presidential candidate. He's now running for governor in California. Steyer, he's a billionaire. I remember hearing him on Fox News one time when he was running for president, and they said, "So you believe in reparations?" And he said, "Yes." And they said, "Well, for how long?" And he said, "Well, it's 2019. I figure the first slave was 1619, so for about 400 years."
Oh.
Right? And now there's not just racial cases for reparations. There's a book by a PhD student on gay reparations and all of these different reparations. So it's about if the problem ultimately is social oppression, the solution ultimately is social justice, social liberation. And that's what that term means then. And so what happened then, back to the narrative of where this went, in the 1930s, you had people vying for power in Germany. Who's going to run Germany? Is it the globalist socialists or the national socialists? The globalist socialists were Marxists. The national socialists were nationalists, and they liked blonde hair and blue eyes, among other things. But they were all socialists. And a little mustache guy emerged to power, Adolf Hitler. And if you were a globalist socialist and you were part of this school of critical theory, most of the leadership were also Jewish. And so this is a bad place to be in 1933 when Hitler rises to power. So you got to get out of there. And where do you go? Brandeis, Columbia, and UCLA and other places. And right below them, in the Axis powers of Marxism, fascist state, but Antonio Gramsci, the most dangerous cultural Marxist, so dangerous, strangely, he never got out of prison. He died in prison. We're going to go visit his gravesite in a couple of months over in Europe to show people on tour what's been happening. But so dangerous was he that his prison notes get translated into the English-speaking world in my state of Indiana by a Notre Dame professor, a Marxist professor named Joseph Buttigieg, father of Mayor Pete.
Wow.
So Mayor Pete didn't deliver to us just homosexuality. That was queer critical theory. And today we've got now the most recent hire at Harvard, a trans dancer named Lahore, W-H-O-R-E, Lahore Vagistan. That's Harvard. It used to be Truth for Christ in the Church. At Yale, we've got a mohawked lesbian systematic theologian in the divinity school who's got a book called Queer Theology Beyond Apologetics. And she tells us in her book, based on a course she teaches in the divinity school for pastors, we're not going to be reading text in theology here. We're going to be reading text in queer critical theory, and we're going to be talking about queering God and queering Christianity. And then you go down the road to Princeton, right? The top three. And Princeton, I just lectured there about 2 months ago. We have Peter Singer, who writes the article, Dearest Pet. And he says that so long as it's mutually consensual and there's no harm inflicted on the animal, nothing wrong with having a little romance on Friday nights.
Heard that.
Yeah, and you're guilty of speciesism, a form of discrimination if you mock that.
And what an interesting historical background on that. And I think that what you pointed out through that is that, and it's one just something to talk about, that they've taken over the language.
Yes.
What we label things. I think that people that try to vilify, like multiculturalism. What's wrong with multiculturalism? What's wrong with teaching about other cultures? Well, it's not teaching about other cultures. What it is teaching that all cultures are equally valid. They all equally teach the same thing.
Right.
And we're saying, no. I shouldn't learn about other cultures. There's nothing wrong with learning about other cultures. But to say that some culture that subjugates women and treats them as possessions rather than people, we would say that verifiably is not the same. And it should be counted as wrong. And so, but what they've done is they've taken over the language of all these things and what we label them. And now when you control the language, anything you say against that language is seen as hate speech, and we're hurtful when we attempt to bring up the truth.
Right. And that's why Charlie had to go. He was guilty of hating people because he erased their existence, trans people, for example. And the end justifies the means, and because he is murdering people, he needs to be gone. And that's why they shot him and killed him. And now we live in an assassination culture, is what the New York Post defined it as last April. I think 56% in a Rutgers study, 56% of those who self-identify on the left think that it's okay to assassinate Donald Trump, 51% Elon Musk. And when you looked at what was the guy who shot the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, Mangione, not only was he a grad student from UPenn, when you saw the stats of people who supported him, about 30% of everyone under age 45 supported the assassin over the assassinated. And why is that significant? Because they're closer and closer to the college campus where all the battle is at.
Interesting. Well, I'm curious then, with the way that you're engaging in all the culture and everything like that, what would you say to the Christian who thinks that is actually a distraction from the gospel?
The gospel does not take place in a vacuum. It takes place in the backdrop of a cultural milieu in which it's presented. If you're presenting the gospel in among a group of people who don't believe that God exists, and you tell them about Jesus, who claims to be God, or that he rose from the dead and there are no miracles, they look at you like you're saying, hey, you want to come and hear what Socrates has on Wednesday night or Friday night about human authority? And you're like, what? Socrates, or no, rather, what does Zeus, to make it worse, what does Zeus think about human nature and authority? Well, Zeus doesn't think anything. He's a myth. He's worse than Santa Claus, right? That's what they think about the Christian worldview. So you can't even get the gospel out when you're in a worldview of soil. We've heard about the parable of the soils that doesn't even believe. You want me to believe in the man. Yeah, but the man is in the book. Yeah, I don't believe in the book. So apologetics is, it's time for it to be revived, and this is one of the major problems. How did we lose our universities? How did we lose the culture? Because in the last 100 years, we have excommunicated the life of the mind. We live with a menace of mindless Christianity, and it's high time we start following Jesus again. When the Sadducees and Pharisees tried to trick him and said, what's the greatest command? He said, love God with all your heart, soul, and mind. So if you want to follow Jesus, obey his commands, and he just told you what to do, but because we are viewed by the world as brainless, we need to recover this. We started the universities. We're not brainless. We don't have a faith tradition. We have a knowledge tradition.
We need you not to beat around the bush. Just tell us how you feel about pain. We don't want you to be. Don't,
So you said recover this. So I'm going to go super practical with it. Let's say someone's listening, a Christian parent, and all of this sounds really overwhelming.
Yeah.
And there's like a certain level of fear maybe that comes along with hearing it. And it's like, maybe I don't understand all this, but I know it's bad and I don't want to be a part of it. So is the answer homeschool, move out into the country, sustain yourself?
And I want to add, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Or are there like, is there practical, what can the everyday like Christian do?
And that's what I will say. I love about the book is because it doesn't leave us hopeless.
Right.
There's a way out of this. You didn't
If
just
you don't
come
commit
and complain.
suicide in the first 2/3, there's hope.
You have to make it to the final third and say, "Hey, wait a minute, guys, we can make our way out of that." And then I want to add on to what he said. We'll talk about a power dynamic. How intimidating is it for me to go into a philosophy class with 300 other students and this teacher with more letters than a thermometer, right? More degrees than a thermometer. All these letters after his name, and he's intimidating. He's up there and espousing something that's true. What do we do here as parents of Christians?
Yeah, you can't escape. You can't go into your churches. They're coming into your churches. You can't even go into your closet. They're coming into your closets, and they have cell phones too. And this is why you've got more middle schoolers transing today than middle schoolers in existence. I know that's hyperbole, but there's an extraordinarily amount of kids now that are transing. It's like there's something that was in the water. And they're getting this off TikTok. They're getting it from the public school system. But guess what? No, they can't just go to the private school system. My daughter is an elementary ed major. And she's at Purdue University, which is one of the more conservative among public universities, where I lost my first PhD, by the way. Still one of the more conservative.
You're not salty about that.
Yeah. No. But yeah, and she and so I know the history, and there's more in the book about this, but how they've navigated and focused on the colleges of education. I get her syllabi every semester to see. And sure enough, Marxism is just built in. Wow. So let's say she was going to go teach at the Christian school, ABC Christian school down the street. And let's suppose she didn't have a father like me who's got 4 graduate degrees and smells this stuff, right? She's going to take that stuff and take it right into the ABC Christian school, and that's what's happening. Gramsci's idea was the long march through the institutions, and so they planned this out, and they spoke about it clearly: academia, media, and then ecclesia, into the churches, and now it has gone into our churches, our Christian academic societies, our seminaries, and our campus ministries. The barbarian is no longer at the gate. They're in the citadel. People need to be aware of what's happening. You can't run from it, and you may not be called to go back into the secular university like some ministries like mine is, but everyone needs to prepare for the poisonous ideology coming downstream, because it is coming to you. And so the hope is, though, that there are resources out there. We have the truth. We just need to stop the menace of mindless Christianity. Stop that the pastors need to stop with being enamored with skinny jeans and fog machines, and instead get back to Ephesians 4:11 and 12 and equip people for works of ministry, and help people obey Jesus' commands. Like he said, if you love me, obey my commands. Love God with your mind. And so it's not just the heart or the hands, it's the head of Christ, especially at the universities. And so we've tried to make it easy for people. We have a press as well. Not only do we have a high school ministry that you can join, have your kids join, help us launch high school ministries, along with your church or your Christian school, your homeschool or whatever. But we've got an undergrad, join us in that, join the movement. Or we've got a PhD student ministry that over 40 or 50 years we are funding PhD students to try to take back the universities by launching them at the top 100 secular universities. And then we've got a professor's division. But we have this product line now. People have heard of people like Steve Meyer, right? Brilliant guy, gets on Joe Rogan's podcast. His last 3 books on intelligent design were 500 pages each. And we said, Steve, no one wants to read your stupid 500
tome.
Right? He's got a movie coming out next week, by the way. And I said, so we said, give us those 500-page books in 25 pages, the 11th grade reading level, we'll make you famous. So he did. He gave us 3. We have Wayne Grudem on Church and State. You have 1,000-page books. Give it to us in 25 pages. William Lane Craig, one of his 2 doctoral dissertations, which was 600 page long originally. We said, Bill, give that to us in 25 pages, 11th grade reading level, in digital, printable forms, whatever you want, and free for download if you just give us your address on our website so that we send you our monthly propaganda. But we've got over 60 of these booklets dealing with the Bible and science, with why does God allow evil and suffering? Is the Bible historically reliable? To everything now on race, class, sex, gender, ethnicity. But in those categories, the cultural apologetics, the author has to have not just a PhD, but has to have had that lived experience, that oppressive situation. And so the one who wrote the trans book has a PhD, did her master's and PhD on the topic, has a 200-page book, and now it gave us a 25-page booklet, 11th grade reading level, and she's former trans. The one on homosexuality, again, former gay. The one on is Christianity, a white man's religion, doctorate. He's black. He was formerly black, and he's still black. Isn't it great?
I'm curious. You keep talking about apologetics. I love engaging in it. Obviously, not at the same level as you. What is your favorite go-to apologetics argument for someone?
I mean, existence of God.
It depends on what you're talking about. On Monday, I'll be at University of North Texas doing an Ask Me Anything, so you got to be ready for anything.
Right.
And then I'll be giving a lecture on the five bad arguments against Christianity. But if someone, depending on what they want to hear, is it a moral argument? Is it historical? Is it scientific? So an easy one is the Kalam cosmological argument. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began, therefore the universe has a cause. It's logically valid. The premises are more plausible than their opposites, and therefore, gun to your head, you're going to believe those premises. If the premises are true and it's logically valid, the conclusion is inescapable. I didn't open up a Bible, and I've just shown God's existence is the most rational thing to believe.
Right.
Moral argument, a lot of people have sentimental connections here. I mean, this is what drives the whole woke movement. They're trying to guilt manipulate us, and so we need to find ways around using the empathy, the pathos of persuasion, not just the logos. But if there is no God, there are no moral facts. There are moral facts, therefore there is a God.
Right.
Or we look at the resurrection arguments. We have over 45 outside sources, non-Bible, non-Christian, Jewish, Roman, Greek, historical, literary sources, 45 of them on the witness stand to provide 129 independent facts that support the life, death, and resurrection of Christ. So we could go on and on and on, but a lot of people today are not just asking, is Christianity true? They don't care. They're asking, is it good? Because they're being told that Christianity is wicked, it's intolerant, it's oppressive. And so we need to be able to show, one, Christianity is good for the world, not just to get you to heaven.
Right.
And we show we started the hospitals, we started the universities, we started the free market economics.
We started the fire.
We started the fire. That's right. And so is Christianity good for the world? Yeah. Is it reasonable? Yes. And is it true? So we have the tools for this, and if parents or pastors or grandparents or businessmen or whatever need access to this, first of all, you can go to our ratiochristi.org website, and you can download all of those or order them, bring them into your youth group. I mean, Sean McDowell uses them in his seminary classes. I know Purdue professors who use them on the side. High schoolers use them. Homeschool groups use them. So there's no excuse that you can have bite-sized chunks, and if you want more, each one of those comes from a 200 to 500-page book. Or invite me to your men's ministry, invite me to your church, to your campus, or to your conference to unpack this more. Paul tells us we need to beware of false philosophy, but in order to beware of false philosophy, we first have to be aware of it. Educate yourself.
Yeah, and I love the hope that the book gives that we can have salt. We can be the salt and light. This can be recovered. Even as you said, we did an entire episode on contingency arguments for the existence of God.
Nice.
And it's an institution to me that one of the institutions that you vilified. I did a persuasive speech there and presented the Kalam and was confronted with young people who had never heard, had never heard clearly. I think I'd share with you in a phone call that one of the questions I got, well, if everything that begins to exist has a cause, who started God? And we're saying, well, you missed the first premise, right? I mean, that's a question literally that a seventh grader would ask me, right? Wait a minute, you didn't listen to P1 at all. So it's interesting to me that when we give them that our faith is not just this blind faith. Our faith is reasonable. Our faith is articulable, and it's founded and grounded in God's word, which is
right.
divine rather than human in origin. Thus, it's validated. It's not circular reasoning. It's validated by a source greater than itself, and indeed, it can be trusted. I want you to know those resources. We want our audience to connect you. We want the audience to get the progressive miseducation of America, and we want them to connect with that. And so we want to get them connected to your resources.
Yep, and down in the description below, if you're listening on YouTube or on Apple, Spotify, down in the description, we will have all those links there, links to the ministry and those resources, links to the book. For all of those things, you can find those links down in the description below. While you're there, we would also love if you would go ahead and subscribe if you have not already, and make sure and leave us a 5-star review. It helps as we seek to push us out to